Today, let your mind drift back to South America to the fiery summer of 1978. That year, in the turbulent country of Argentina, the Brazilian national team, Seleção, wrote the most strange journey in the history of the World Cup. Under the guidance of coach Claudio Coutinho, they brought a new philosophy, a Europeanized Brazil, with discipline and pragmatism far from the traditional Samba improvisation. They were undefeated throughout the tournament, but could not touch the Gold Cup because of a cruel scenario in the remaining group. Brazilians called that generation Campeões Morais, the moral champions. But behind that unofficial title full of pride and bitterness were people of flesh and blood. More than 45 years have passed. Time has carved indelible marks on their lives. Some became immortal legends, some lived a quiet life, and sadly some stopped their journey in tragedy and tears. Let's turn back the pages of the file, looking back at the ups and downs of the main actors in the movie. Seleção, 1978. Emerson Leão, 28 and nicknamed the Lion, entered the 1978 World Cup as Brazil's steely goalkeeping general. The man the team relied on as Coutinho's pragmatic philosophy took hold. In a team accustomed to artists on the pitch, Leão was cold, disciplined, and imposing. He encouraged his teammates not with gentle pats on the shoulder, but with authoritative roars. His style of ball catching that year was a mix of cat-like reflexes and recklessness. He would run straight into the feet of an opposing striker to protect his goal. Leão's captaincy was a bold statement that Brazil in 1978 was not just dancing with the ball, they were also willing to fight to the end. Leão's life thereafter was a series of endless battles. When he became a coach, he brought his military style to the dressing room, causing him to clash with countless stars, including the noisy incidents with Romário and Robinho. Later, he did not accept the indisciplined late arrival and early departure typical of Brazilian players. Outside of football, Leão lives the life of an old-fashioned patriarch, strict and conservative. He is also a large farm owner fond of the country life, but still maintains the habit of getting up early and working hard. The name Leão Lion has been his destiny, lonely, proud, and always ready to bear his claws to protect his territory, whether on the field or in the coaching chair. Currently, Leão, 75 years old, has left the coaching bench, but is still a fiery commentator. He is a rare person who dares to criticize Neymar or contemporary stars on television. He is a living witness to a time when football was a man's honor, not an entertainment show. José Oscar Bernardi, a 23-year-old center-back with a demeanor as elegant as if wearing a suit in the middle of a World Cup fire, became the necessary balance point of the Brazilian defense in 1978. If Leão was the fire burning behind, Oscar was the cool stream keeping the entire defense system awake. He played football with the mind of a scholar, reading situations, clearly choosing the right position, and almost never having to make dirty tackles, because he always arrived before trouble happened. The Oscar-Amaral duo at that time was likened to intelligence and force, combined one intelligent one, and strong, forming a steel wall in front of the Brazilian goal. Not only defending, Oscar was also the one who initiated attacks from the back line, converging the qualities of a modern center-back decades ahead of his time. Oscar was one of the first Brazilians to have a vision of life after football. When he moved to Japan to play for Nissan Motors, the predecessor of Yokohama F. Marinos, he did not see it as a place to retire, but as a potential market. He studied culture and business. Returning to Brazil, he opened the Oscar Inn Eco Resort, a giant sports complex. This became the training base for many big teams, including Brazil and South Korea. At the World Cup, Oscar has completely transformed from a player into a millionaire businessman running the business system with the same precision as his defense. His composure and strategic mind on the pitch have helped Oscar build a sustainable business empire. He proves that footballers can also be great entrepreneurs. At 70, Oscar is enjoying the fruits of his labor. He shuttles between Brazil and Japan, respected in both countries as a cultural and sporting ambassador. Amaral, then 23, and nicknamed O Couve, the cabbage for his fair skin and distinctive curly hair, was the hard worker standing next to the dashing center-back Oscar. But his defining moment was not a typical tackle, but a remarkable save against Spain. With Leao beaten and Santillanas shot seemingly on the line, Amaral appeared out of nowhere, swooping in to clear the ball on the goal line, keeping Brazil alive. That move was as important as a golden goal. Amaral played with a survival instinct, with tenacity and a tireless fighting spirit, becoming a solid pillar in the Brazilian defense. Unlike Oscar, who became a businessman, Amaral chose a much quieter life. He was a gentle, religious, and introverted person. After retiring, he returned to youth football, teaching poor children. He was not rich in money, but rich in the love of Corinthians fans. He always talked about the save in 1978 with a shy smile. God put me in that place. Amaral is the embodiment of quiet devotion. All his life, he has been the one standing behind others, allowing them to shine, and he is happy in that role. However, fate did not spare him at the end of his life. Cancer had worn away the strength of that steely center back. On May 31st, 2024, Amaral breathed his last at the age of 69. Brazilian fans mourned him, remembering the gentle cabbage who once carried the fate of the nation on his feet. Dirceu, 25, known as the Ant or the Gypsy, was Brazil's dynamic presence at the 1978 World Cup. Despite his diminutive stature, he possessed boundless energy, a thunderous shot from distance, a rhythmic passerby, and a fierce challenger. In Zico's absence, Dirceu shouldered all the creative duties in midfield, becoming the team's beating heart. His 3 goals with impressive long-range strikes demonstrated his all-round qualities as a midfielder. For his outstanding performances, Dirceu was named the tournament's 3rd-best player, bronze ball behind only Mario Kempes and Paulo Rossi. Dirceu was perhaps the first Brazilian footballer to truly be a global citizen. He played for nearly 20 clubs in Brazil, Mexico, Spain, Italy, where Italy was an idol at Napoli before Maradona. He never stayed in one place for long like a wild wind. Dirceu loved the free life, loved parties and laughter. He was a friend to everyone. His optimism could light up a dark room. Dirceu's fluid, roaming style of play is his life, a never-ending quest for joy. But his travels ended in the most brutal tragedy. On September 15, 1995, while driving in Rio de Janeiro, Dirceu's car was hit head-on by an out-of-control street racer. He died at the age of 43 in the prime of his post-football life. Dirceu's death was a terrible shock, a sad note for world football in the 90s. Roberto Dinamite, dynamite waiting to explode, was the image of a perfect striker at the 1978 World Cup. 24 years old, the all-time top scorer of the Brazilian national championship, Dynamite started the tournament as a substitute for Reinaldo. However, when given the chance in the life and death match against Austria, he immediately proved his dynamite status by scoring the only goal that sent Brazil through. He did not stop there. He continued to score 2 more goals against Poland, affirming his ability to seize great opportunities, not needing many touches, but touches to score. There are few players as loyal as Dynamite. He devoted almost his entire life to Vasco da Gama, scoring more than 700 goals for the club. After retiring, he did not choose to be a coach, but went into politics, Rio State Congressman, and became the president of Vasco Club. But the president's seat is a hot seat. He has experienced both glory and bitterness. Criticism from the very fans who once worshipped him when the team declined. However, his love for the club has never changed. The explosiveness on the pitch contrasts with the steadfastness and perseverance in Love with a Single Shirt. Dynamite is a symbol of loyalty that is rare in modern football. At the end of his life, the King of Dynamite faced a silent battle with bowel cancer. He fought bravely like a warrior, but the miracle did not happen. On January 8, 2023, just a few days after the King of Football Pelé passed away, Roberto Dynamite also returned to his motherland at the age of 68. Brazil lost two kings in the same week. Jorge Mendonça, the shooting star, was the most unlikely phenomenon of the 1978 World Cup. At 24, he unexpectedly took over when Zico was injured, and Mendonça's performances were so good that even when Zico recovered, he was still on the bench, possessing flamboyant technique, overconfidence, and a charismatic demeanor. Mendonça became the Seleção's unlikely hero, their golden hope in the second phase of the tournament. But the rapid rise to fame was his undoing. After the World Cup, Mendonça fell into temptation. Alcohol, all-night parties, and a lack of discipline took their toll. He drifted down the leagues. The tragedy culminated in a divorce, the loss of custody of his children, and a fall into poverty. At one point, the World Cup hero was seen selling off his memorabilia and even relying on the help of friends in the slums. Mendonça is a sad testament to the saying, "Talent without character is a disaster." His brief rise on the Argentine football field only served as a backdrop for the darkness that would later engulf his life. On the 17th of February 2006, Jorge Mendonça died in a public hospital after suffering a heart attack, the result of years of poor health. He died at the age of 51 alone and forgotten by most of the public. A sad end for the man who once benched Zico. Nelinho, the physicist on the pitch, was Brazil's surprise right-back at the 1978 World Cup. At 27, he was not the first choice as Toninho Baiano defended better, but every time he came on, the audience was amazed. His classic goal against Dino Zoff, Italy in the third-place match, proved that from a tight angle on the right wing, Nelinho stroked the outside of his foot, sending the ball into a perfect curve into the far corner. The power of his shot led people to say he could shoot the ball out of the stadium. Unlike many of his contemporaries who fell into vices, Nelinho was addicted to sports. After retiring, he opened a chain of gyms and fitness clubs in Belo Horizonte. He maintained an extremely healthy lifestyle, no alcohol or tobacco. He also participated in politics as a state representative, focusing on policies for the development of community sports. Nelinho's football trajectory has always been unpredictable, but his life trajectory has been straightforward and orderly. His muscle power on the pitch has translated into a successful health business. Currently, Nelinho, 74 years old, still has an admirable, strong physique. He still directly instructs at his gyms and is a shining example for young people about discipline. Zico, the restrained genius, should have shone brightly at the 1978 World Cup, but fate tested him. At 25, White Pelé did not fit in with Coach Coutinho's military philosophy. The climax of the tragedy came in the match against Sweden in the last minute. Zico jumped high to head the ball into the net from a corner kick, but referee Clive Thomas blew the whistle while the ball was still in the air. The goal was disallowed. Zico was injured afterwards and lost his official position, leaving behind the image of a sad lost Zico on the field. Zico turned the sadness of 1978 into motivation to shine in 1982. But the biggest turning point in his life was his decision to go to Japan when he was old. Here he not only played football but also taught the Japanese how to play professional football. He was worshipped by the Japanese as a god of football. After that, he became a veteran coach leading Japan, Iraq. Russia around the world with the demeanor of a peace ambassador. Zico on the field is flamboyant and kind. Off the field, he is a great personality, never involved in a scandal, is proof that sometimes failure in a tournament World Cup 78 is just a stepping stone to a greater lasting greatness. Zico, 71 years old, is currently a famous YouTuber, a philanthropist and the national grandfather of Brazil. His gentle smile still warms the hearts of millions of people. José Reinaldo de Lima, the arm raised in defiance of tyranny, was the unyielding symbol of Brazil at the 1978 World Cup. At 21, O Rei of Atletico Mineiro fans, was a man of immense talent, but his explosiveness was hampered by knee surgery. However, his goal celebration against Sweden was one that the world will remember forever. He stood still, raised his right fist to the sky, symbolizing the Black Panthers movement and openly defying the military dictatorship that ruled Brazil. He was the only player who dared to do so. Ronaldo's career was cut short because of his shattered crystal legs, but he used his fame to fight for democracy. After football, he became a journalist and political activist for the Workers' Party PT, always standing on the side of the poor and people of color. He lived a simple life full of ideals. Ronaldo played football with passion, and also did politics with passion, was a rare link between sport and political ideology in Brazil at that time. Reinaldo, 67 years old, still lives in Belo Horizonte, although he has difficulty walking due to the consequences of his old injury. The king still has a strong voice in the country's social issues. Batista, the silent sweeper, was the silent heart of Brazil's defense at the 1978 World Cup. At 23, João Batista da Silva was never allowed to stop running in Coutinho's formation. He started all 7 matches cleaning up the midfield, being a great one-on-one player and a reliable stopper in front of the center-backs. Batista was the most exemplary worker among the Seleção's artists. After a playing career which was marred by a red card for a kick to the stomach by Maradona in 1982, Batista turned to television. He studied and honed his language skills and became a leading football commentator in southern Brazil. He was known for his calm, incisive style of analysis, a stark contrast to his previous aggressiveness on the pitch. The discipline of a defensive midfielder helped Batista train himself to succeed in a harsh media environment. At 69, Batista is still a familiar face on Brazilian television, a respected professional. Rivellino, the broken-winged leader, came to the 1978 World Cup as the only remaining historical witness from the legendary 1970 championship team. At the age of 32, he was the leader, the eldest brother expected to lead his younger brothers Zico and Dirchu. However, this was a sad tournament for the Mustache King. Persistent injuries made him only play 3 matches and could not play regularly. However, Rivellino's presence on the bench was still a great spiritual medicine, just standing there with his famous thunderous left foot. The young Brazilian players felt they had a solid support to not collapse under pressure. Immediately after the 1978 World Cup, Rivellino made a shocking decision at that time: leave Brazil to play for Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia. At that time, Middle Eastern football was a blank slate, and Rivellino was the first world-class superstar to break into this land. He was treated like a king and laid the foundation for the love of football there. After retiring, Rivellino became a famously hard-nosed television commentator. He was often critical of the flamboyant, ineffective play of young players and always demanded perfection. He also opened football schools which produced future talents. Rivellino's atomic kick could shatter walls, and so could his personality, explosive, direct, and authoritative. He was a bridge between the glorious past and the practical present. Now, at 78, Rivellino lives a full life in São Paulo. He is still a big guy on television, a monument that any Brazilian player must bow to respectfully. Edinho, the beauty of calm, shone as a classy backup in Oscar and Amaral's steely defense at the 1978 World Cup. At 23, Edinho Nazareth made 3 appearances and immediately impressed with his flamboyant style of play, rarely seen in a defender. He didn't clear the ball, but passed it out of the box with his superb individual technique, allowing him to play as a midfielder. Although he wasn't a regular in 1978, those minutes signaled the birth of a future leader for the Seleção. Edinho's career flourished after that. He became captain of Brazil at the 1986 World Cup and had a great time in Italy with Udinese, where he played alongside Zico. After retiring, Edinho proved himself to be a versatile player. He coached many big clubs such as Fluminense and Flamengo, then became a commentator and even got involved in beach soccer management. In all roles, he showed elegance, concise speech, and sharp thinking. Edinho played football like a gentleman in a tuxedo, and his life exuded the same poise. He was the model of the modern Brazilian footballer. He played with his head and lived with his mind. Edinho, 69 years old, is currently a prestigious commentator. He lives a quiet life, avoiding scandals, maintaining the image of a clean and classy legend. Chicão, warrior in the Battle of Rosario, was Brazil's tenacious defensive midfielder at the 1978 World Cup. At 29, the Lion of Cups only played 3 matches, but Coach Coutinho sent him on the field in the most important and fierce match, the 0-0 draw with hosts Argentina, dubbed the Battle of Rosario. With his aggressive playing style, fearless of contact, and stubborn face, Chicão took on the task of intimidating the Argentine artists, becoming the embodiment of toughness and the necessary villain to protect the innocence of his teammates. Chicão is a great monument of São Paulo FC, the exemplary captain who lifted the national cup in 1977. He is famous for hating defeat to the extreme, willing to do everything to win. After retiring, he opened a sports shop and lived a rather private life. He rarely appeared in the media, maintaining the same taciturn and quiet personality as when he was playing. On the field, Chicão was as strong as a rock, unbreakable. But ironically, life struck him down with an invisible enemy from within. On October 8, 2008, Chicão passed away at his home after a long battle with esophageal and stomach cancer. The indomitable warrior passed away at the age of 59, leaving behind a sad memory for São Paulo fans of a captain with a strong spirit.